I'm Rick Barrett. Welcome. In the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about different aspects of spirit and how we can bring those into our form. And we're focusing primarily on three aspects, which are Shen, Yi, and Hun, and having them as a sequence. And so, just to recapitulate the Shen, we think of that in terms of spirit. So the most insubstantial aspect of your being. It's that which initiates your actions, your motion, and then the E would be the um, the mind or the consciousness, and the Hun would be your soul, or that is the the yin aspect of spirit. That is where you're gathering the uh, the energy and it becomes more condensed. Your spirit becomes more condensed. And so the big distinction there between the Shen, the uh, part that wants to make something happen, and the Hun, which is the place where we gather. Shen is very short. It's like boom, it's like the spark or the lightning flash that initiates. And then we go into the E, which is the deliberate execution of that intention. And then we have the E or the Hun, Hun, which is your the yin aspect. That's your soul. It's what gathers the energy. So before you mobilize for your energy for another explosion, another Shen explosion, you gather and you incorporate that energy into that insubstantial aspect of your being. And so today I'd like to focus on the E part because it has come up a lot for with people asking me like how much should I be thinking during my when I'm practicing my form? Should I just be my mind be clear and I just kind of just follow and just feel, or is there some thinking involved? And so the I think the E uh, indicates, kind of answers that question. And so it's the E is it's YI is the spelling for it, the pinyin spelling for it, and it's usually translated as the wisdom mind or the intention mind, and uh, Dr. Yang Ming says it's the wisdom mind. It's the calm, centered, thoughtful mind, and uh, and Yang Fukui says it's consciousness. And so I think a lot of these kind of point in the direction and for that we want to go. And the fact that it's included in the spirit, it's uh, that I think it gives us a clue about it's one of the more insubstantial aspect of our our mind, our thinking. If we think of, in terms of body, mind, spirit integration, there is a continuum that goes through that, and there are arbitrary distinctions of body, mind, and spirit. And but even those arbitrary distinctions are helpful. And so anything that I'm saying now goes with the usual disclaimer that this is stuff that going through my head, going through my approach to the topic, and it's by no means the last word on it. And feel free to have your own thoughts on it as whatever you like. But this is how it works for me, and that is if we think of a spectrum of substantiality in terms of our awareness that goes from the very dense aspects of our being, which you can think of as uh, like the cellular processes. Or there's an awareness that goes on there, and there are trillions of those processes going on, and there's each of them have certain decision making going on that is way below the level of our conscious mind. And so consciousness has it's what I would call pre-consciousness. That is, things that are happening before we become aware of them. And so whenever Master Yang talks about it as consciousness, that would fit into my idea of consciousness being that which we know we are aware of. And I don't know what's happening in all the different cells or organs at all times, but whenever something arises to a point where my conscious mind says, "Oh, I'm feeling a pain in my heart," say, then that would mean that the pre-conscious of my heart organ would be getting loud enough to get the attention of my conscious mind. And so there's a span there also in terms of consciousness that goes from very crude thinking and awareness to very refined, highly refined. And that's where we get into I think the E. In the Chinese, they think of it in terms of Shen, which is the heart spirit or heart mind, and the E, which is the wisdom mind. And so we can think of it as those are just two variations there. And I think of it more of a spectrum where there is a whole lot of variation, and there's also overlap between body and mind and spirit and all three together. So any distinction we make are localized. They are context driven. That is, in this situation, it is helpful to think about E in this way. And so that's when we talk about here. I'm talking about E as the higher mind. We can talk about the wisdom mind, but it's associated with the organ, the spleen, which is earth. And so we think of that as the calm, centered part of our being, that calm, centered energy that is earthy energy. And so whenever we're in that E, that is, we have regulated the body mind in such a way that we have calmed things down. And so Yang Ming talks about it. He's saying, like, we regulate the body, we regulate the emotions, we regulate the mind, we regulate the energy, we regulate the spirit. And so we regulate until we don't have to regulate it anymore. And that is, I think, a good way of looking at it. He used the analogy of, say, driving a car, learning to drive a car. We regulate very intently when we're first learning to drive. Everything is, don't do this, do this, do this whenever this happens, etc. So we're constantly figuring things out as we're going along. So that's a denser part of our mind there, where we're actually having to things, and there's certain priorities, and there's certain dangers, and so there's importances that we attach to our thinking at that point. And then as we learn to drive and we get lots of experience at it, then we are able to do many things at once, have a conversation, sip a cup of coffee, listen to the radio, whatever, and we don't have to think so much about each moment. And so we're now we have regulated the mind and the body in that case to a point where we don't have to regulate so much, and until something goes askew and we have to actually go back into, what do I do now? But so there's a parallel there to learning Taijiquan. That is, how much do we have to think about our form, say? Actually, when you're starting off, a lot. You have to really plug into that and be aware of everything. And then as you're going along, you're refining things and continue refining things until you get to a point where, okay, I can do this thing well enough that I don't have to think so much about it. But when we're talking about the that process of Shen, Yi, Hun, we're going back to actually really shining the bright light of consciousness onto our actions, onto our intentions, onto our internal state, and back to regulating things and to a much higher degree. And that way we're able to correct things that have gotten into bad habits. We never learned it right in the first place. And so as we're going along, we initiate that Shen that says, okay, do this. And it may think in terms of words, but at the higher level, it doesn't. There is just, and you don't have to speak in words. So when we're in that superconscious state, that is body, mind, spirit integration, we are then able to home the body mind to the point where we can activate this E so that we can monitor multiple things at once and be aware when something is not quite right. And then we can bring our attention to it. We can also give instructions to, like, say, I'm going through something and say, okay, I want to feel some water chi in this posture. I have to place the intention to do that. It doesn't happen by itself. It's not, I go through these movements and I get water chi. It's like, no, I need to create that energy in my mind, and then my E executes that to the degree that my kung fu will allow. And the higher level your kung fu, the more you're able to do, and the less attention you have to place on the simpler things, and so you're able to execute. But it's always good to go back and just say, well, just how about my posture in this particular instance? Is it as good as I like? And you're constantly going back and making these little adjustments. So that's where the E comes in. That's where your consciousness, you are aware of being aware of what's going on. And then we get to the Hun, the soul part, the Yin part, and then we just, and the mind clears. We move into that non-objective awareness and just feel what we have created from our Shen and our E, and just feel into that. And what this does is this mobilizes our chi so that we're ready to go into the next movement. We go into the next yang phase where we're executing something and making something happen. So, and this is just one way of looking at it, one way of practicing these movements, and you can turn it around. And you can start with Hun and have your E next, and then your Shen being your final spot. You're feeding, everything can be feeding your Shen. We have this opportunity with the Taijiquan and any other internal arts to really play with it and play with the different qualities, the different energies, the different states of being, the different awarenesses that come with that, and feel them in different ways. So there's no one right way of doing these things. We get to explore. We have the tools here to explore. And this is where we get into the alchemy part here. We get to like put different things together and see what happens. So I'll be interested to hear comments from people in the room, but also the off YouTube, whatnot. Your ideas about what you think about the E and how much impact the mind has in your practice. But for right now, let's go through this. Let's go through a Taiji form, and I'm going to talk a lot about what I am thinking, feeling, correcting as I'm going through this, and just follow along and just do a similar process yourselves as you do it. You will follow that same pattern of the yang initiation, the Shen, the Yi, which is we're feeling into how we're executing these movements. And then we go into the Hun and then just feel into that and allow that energy to gather. And then we initiate, go into the next movement. So please stand up and let's do this. Okay, so let's begin with our 3 pillars. And we can even execute that process here, that Shen, Yi, Hun, in our 3 pillars as we do this. We initiate, let's say we start by initiating, just pointing the index fingers and feeling. So you're point the index fingers, you're feeling the finger, you're reaching with the finger, your mind, your E goes to the finger. And you feel that, and you may be feeling some pulsing in your index fingers or in your hands, your arms. So that tells us that the chi is happening there. The chi is amplifying in those places. So, and as we do, we just feel into that coherence now that comes from that. Clear your mind and just feel into that and just allow that energy to gather. Allow that state of being, that state of awareness to condense so that it becomes more familiar. Feel your 3 nails here. Along the big toe line, feel your heel, the ball of your foot, comes down with the big toe a little bit. So you're feeling all 3 of those nails activated. Now let's sink into the heel nail, the anchor nail, the anchor point, the anchor nail first. Just feel into that. And knees are unlocked and you feel yourself sinking down. Your sung, allowing your body to sink down into the earth. Very, very relaxed. Everything is just kind of dropping down. But at the same time, it's not collapsing into the floor because you are sinking into your structure. So you're allowing yourself to feel the support of your intrinsic structure. And here we opening the yang chuan points in the balls of the feet and feeling that yin qi of the earth rising. Tapping into the big qi. So we're localizing our efforts into our own particular body mind, while at the same time connecting up to a much bigger energy source, the chi of the earth. And then reach up with the crown of the head and tuck in your chin, open your jade pillow gate. And feel your head kind of simultaneously reaching up, but also hanging down. So you're finding that sweet spot where your head just sort of, there's a little bubble there that's kind of floating above your shoulders, but you don't feel any tension in your neck. Reaching up the crown and you're opening up the Bai Hui at the top of the head. Feeding the Niwan Gong, the mud pill palace in the center of your head, your pineal gland, your pituitary gland, your hypothalamus. Feeling the 3rd eye, your heaven's eye, heaven's eye. And as you're doing this, as you're reaching up and feeling that yang qi of the heavens, you're also feeling the yin qi of the earth. And feel your whole body getting energized by these two opposing poles, both of them feeding you. Relax your lower back, drop your sacrum, allow your pelvic bowl to align properly, to even out. And unlock your hip joints. You're going to sung qua. You spiral down to the left, spiral down to the right, back to the left, right. So you're just releasing any extraneous tension in the area around you, in the muscles and connective tissue around your hips, your hip joints. So your hips are flowing freely, getting very sung. Reach a little bit with your elbows and open up the shoulder gates. Feel that energy rushing into your arms, into your hands as you unkink the hose in your shoulders. Now go into the balls of your feet. So this is the Shen here. We go into the balls of our feet and reach up with the wrists, reach up with the fingers, reach out with the fingers, press down with the big toes. That was the E part, and now we're just going to stop and feel into that. This is the Hun. Clear your mind and just feel into that energy. We initiated, we executed, and now we're reaping the rewards. Now sink into your heels. That's your begin to Shen. Reach out with the elbows, which is our E part. So we're going through this. We're very conscious, very deliberate about lifting the fingers and bending the wrists, getting down to your sides, and then reaching down with the fingers, nice and slow. And then feel the Hun. Feel your spirit, your soul, gather the energy. It's interesting that the Hun soul is regulated by the liver, which is wood chi. And so when we do this, when we're feeding our wood chi, we're feeding, it's like nurturing plants, we're nurturing a tree, which allows us to expand. Go into the balls of your feet. This is the Shen. Reach with the wrists. Here we're going E. Reach with the fingers. Press down with your big toes. So notice that we executed several things there, and those required some thought. Those required decisions and timing. Eventually you get to where you can just do that, where it's the regulating of no regulation. But until you get to that point, you can't. You need more of your E there present to get it so that you can reap those rewards. So now we're feeling the Hun here, we're gathering that, condensing spirit. And now sink into your heels, reach out with your elbows. That's your Shen, E. Feel your chi circulating, but also gathering, or your body is taking more in. You just in a matter of a few minutes here, we've amplified the field, amplified the internal energy, and make that more available. As we do that, as we amplify our chi and circulate it properly, this feeds the spirit and raises the spirit. So the more chi we have, the more we can raise the spirit, which then allows us to spiral upwards, a higher order of Shen, Yi, Hun, and keep spiraling to whatever degree that we can tolerate. Okay, so now let's do the Yang Sheng Fu's 13 original postures with this in mind. We're going to do that nice and slow, and we will. I'll talk you through it. Okay, so here we go. So first of all, empty out. Just get into the emptiness of this posture. Just feel into that. Clear your mind as best you can. Do that by feeling. So actually, one point I'd like to make before we start this, that your mind, particularly the lower parts of the mind, will tend to occupy themselves unless you give them something to do. So you're called the default mode network in your brain. That is, your brain is constantly churning out thoughts unless you give it a task. When it's task oriented, then we shift out of the default mode network, and we're able to move into this E, this higher mind. So by consciously, deliberately, not just you want to feel everything, but you also want to be consciously deliberate. You want to be mindful of each of these actions. And the more you can do that, the more you can train mindfulness, so that it's not such a process to get into a mindful state. You do it by shifting out of that default mode network by feeling your body. You feel first and then do. So we'll do that here. So you want to feel your feet. You want to feel those three pillars here in this empty posture. Now we sink into the right and turn right. Step. This is the E part here. We're going through executing these movements and pivot, and then Hun. And we gather. Sink into the balls of your feet, reach with your wrists, reach with your fingers, press with your toes, and feel that. Hun. Heels, reach down with your elbows. So we got Shen, E. Okay, hands come down, fingers lifted slightly, and then reach down with your fingers. Hun. Feel. Gather. Empty your mind. Think of your left heel. Shen. Turn. Reach. E. Hun. Think of your right heel. Shen. E. Check your central equilibrium as you do this. E. Reach. Open your shoulders. Reach. Feel your elbows. You're not going to feel your elbows unless you deliberately decide to. Reach with the fingers. 1. And then left heel, Shen. E. Feel the weight in your left leg, your left quads turning. E. And reach. 1. Relax your shoulders. Up your elbows. Feel your elbows. Feel your fingers. 1. And right heel. Turn. So E. 1. Feel the swing of your arms. Tuck in your chin, reach for the crown. Feel the verticality of your posture. Right heel, Shen. Step. Left heel. Turn. Step in. Reach. 1. Right heel, Shen. E. Turn. Press beak and turn back and reach. Feel that. Pause. Feel that posture. Feel the verticality of your spine and contrast that to the horizontal reaching of your right arm. And then Shen, step, E, 1. Take a moment to correct your back leg, make sure it's kind of almost straight, reaching out. Your right wrist is elevated up around your ear. Your spine and leg are in a straight line. You're reaching with your left hand, your fingers. Feel into that posture. 1. And then left heel, Shen, step in, E, reach for the crown, 1. Right heel, spiral down, step with the left foot, left heel, and reach through, E, and turn, E, and 1. Feel this unique posture. Feel the chi building as you go through these postures. They keep spiraling upward. And then left heel, Shen, right heel, E, left heel, 1. Reach with your elbows, your fingers, reach with the crown. Feel the forward vector from this posture. Left heel, E, or Shen, reach, turn, E, Hun. Heel. Shen. Yi. Left heel. Hun. Pivot on your right heel. Sink into your right heel. Pivot on your left. E. Sink. Hun. Left heel. Shen. E. Hun. Shen. E. Hun. Pause a moment and just go back to E and just feel into your posture and make any corrections that you need. And then go back to Hun and just feel the effects of that. Left heel pivot. Left hand comes up. E. Feel the weight of your arm. Feel that metal energy dropping down. Hun. Open your back. Reach with your elbows. Left heel. Pivot. Right heel. E. Left heel. Hun. Right heel. Shen. E. Left heel. Right heel. Hun. Shen. Left heel. E. Reach. Open. Hun. Left heel. Shen. E. Right heel. Right ball. Hun. Shen. E. Feel the viscosity of the space as you move through it. Shen, left heel, turn, pivot, E. Hun. Shen. E. Hun. Shen. E. Hun. Take a little extra time in Hun here. Really allow the yin to pervade, to nurture, to feed you, to feed your soul. E. Hun. Empty out.
Uh,
Yeah, Scott.
we got about halfway through it, and my brain kept saying, "I hope he's not doing this again," because 2 times through, I wouldn't have made it. I would have been a puddle. I would have been a puddle on the floor with electricity floating through it or something. Ooh, wow. I really focused on the Hun, trying to really gather, and I gather a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really good.
Wonderful. All right.
Well, I know that, yes, you had started and that our main focus was sort of going to be on the Yi. And I was all Hun the whole way through. We would get to where we would, be still and be in Hun. I'm not sure I'm using the right language to say that. And it was like, I could have stood there forever. And so much so that I really had to listen and actually look at you. I mean, I know this form, but I had to look at you like, what am I doing next? Because I was just so, and I love that speed of going so slow, so that you really get to experience everything. You get to experience the Shen, the Yi, and the Hun took over for me like it did for Scott. And since you've been doing this, I think every week I've reported how powerful it is and just amazing. And I don't even know what it is I'm getting. I mean, I do, but I don't at the same time because I'm just kind of, I don't want to say I'm giving it up into just the doing and the being and absorbing that, but that's sort of it. And It's very powerful. It's very powerful.
Thank you. That's eloquently stated. Really, thank you for sharing that. Really, I can feel it. I can feel you. That was,
I
that
think
was,
everybody can feel me. Oh,
yeah, that's that's what we're looking for. If we go to the Hun, is to move into that state of non-objective awareness, where okay, now what? And then we reemerge and start it over again. We do the next thing. But
well,
that's
the thing that was so cool was being so content in that state of not feeling any urgency to move on to the next one.
nice.
And, left to my own devices, I don't know how long I would have stayed there before, I went on to the next. Maybe I would just physically get tired or what, I don't know. But I was very, very content at being right there in that moment. And just, I won't even say absorbing the experience. I was the experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. Great, thank you, Richard.
We've in our long journey, we've learned that there's yang and yin in every posture. Right. We've learned that you can separate every posture into an undetermined number of parts. And there's right. Yang and yin in every one of those parts. And now we know that there's Shen, Yi, and Huan in every one of those tiny parts of every posture. And you can break it into as many parts as you want and enjoy every little bit of it. This is, it begins, it puts itself together, and then it rewards you with what you have done.
Very good. Very good.
And it certainly seems to build energetically as you move through this. Thank you. I think I have the basic understanding of the three parts now.
Great. Good. It's just one way of talking about this, one way of setting right. it up. As you said, we can do this any number of ways, but this way produces a desirable effect. And right. so we do it this way. It doesn't mean it's the last word on it, just means this is a way of going about it that produces desirable results. It is pragmatic in that respect.
And going through the Yi process seems very rewarding. What you get when you get to Huan is a reward.
Right. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Very, very cool. Thank you.
Good. Cool. Jonathan, you got something?
Well, am I off? Yeah. It's interesting. You started with Yi, and that's kind of in the middle of the two, right? Because we go from Shen to Yi to the Hun. And I'm trying to understand more what you're doing. And I think as I was talking to you earlier in the week about it, the way the Hun kind of sets up the Shen, and then it's like a cycling around. I like that. Yeah. As you know, I mean, I'm a little caught up with the guest and the host thing, and it's not about controlling thoughts because a host invites the guests in. It's more about actually separating the host from the guest. But I think what Valerie and Scott were experiencing was an environment in which, the thought that's going to be arising is there for the essential resting awareness of the host. There is that separation. It's almost like you're building in the gap between thoughts and all of that. So I'm playing with what you're doing. We're kind of we approach this slightly differently, but I'm experientially, I'm seeing what you're doing and what ways it can really work with that guest host analogy.
Cool. Scott, you got something?
Yeah, I have been playing, I've been playing with this since with my form, and it really does. I mean, it really does build the energy fast. It really does. And what I realized after I spoke was that sort of what Jonathan was saying, focusing on the E so much was why I was so much into the Hun, because when you really focus on the E, it really sets you up for the Hun. It really does.
Yeah. It's like
Beautiful.
what Richard said, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Great. Okay. Well, thank you all so much. This has been a lot of fun. And
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and
Thanks, Maria.
production
Maria.
staff. Maria and all the production staff. Thank you very much.